How do I introduce this? Lost.jpg, everyone. It's Deep Dive Zone, a Sonic
Oh
review
my
series for fans of all
god.
shapes and sizes. And well, today we're not really talking about Sonic so much as something Sonic adjacent. It's something that somebody who worked on Sonic made.
It's tangentially related.
It's at least as related to Sonic as Knights was, because Knights was made
Yeah,
by the creator
Yeah,
of Sonic,
yeah,
and
yeah, that's fair.
The Lost Ones was made by the one true savior of Sonic, Ken Penders.
you're darn right.
You goddamn right he is.
So, in the Image Comics crossover of Archie Sonic, we spent a long time following characters like Ian Droid and Keri Kurosawa, or Particle as they call it. So, Sonic fans would assume that these human characters are just Image Comics characters they never heard of. That was what I assumed, right? But no, Image Comics fans, what few of them were reading that fucking terrible comic, had no idea who those people were either. They were, in fact, the OCs of a Mr. Kenneth Penders Jr., who wanted to use the crossover as a stealth pilot for his own original superhero property, The Lost Ones, in all caps. That's how you know it's important.
Can't believe he really got to insert his OCs in his fan fiction. It's crazy.
He really did. Goddamn.
I assumed that the Lost Ones had already had its pilot by then, but it's actually the other way around. That surprised me that
Yeah,
it was
that's
in
really
Supersonic first.
interesting. That's really interesting that they decided to do that. Well, that Penders decided to do it that way.
My understanding of the Image Comics crossover is that it was basically like a friend of a friend scenario where
Mm-hmm.
somebody at Image Comics, their kid was a big fan of Sonic Comics, so they got in contact, which leads me to believe that
Ah,
Penders basically had full creative control over that special.
Seemed
damn.
like it.
No wonder it was so incomprehensible.
The ironic thing in all that is not only was the Lost Ones first issue not out by this point, like Lauren said,
Mhm.
it didn't release until the year 2000, 2 years after the
I was about to say
crossover.
that it was like 2 years
Yeah, there was a
later.
gap.
It was supposed to
It's just
build hype, but
insane.
it came out 2 years later, ran for exactly one issue, and then got canned.
Well,
Um,
that wasn't intentional,
Well,
so
yeah, that part wasn't intentional.
no, but it follows what is now a long-standing tradition of Pender's behavior, where he spends an inordinate amount of time trying to get people interested in a thing that doesn't look all that good, and then the thing either doesn't come out, or it does come out and it immediately crashes and burns.
Sounds like something else he's working on.
well, I have to give him credit. It did come out in a
Yeah,
form.
I will give him credit that this actually did happen for one issue.
Yeah, the only other promise that Penders has ever followed up on since this is, like, making a Discord server, which immediately crashed and burned, so... So the cover is kind of hard to figure out. It shows, obviously, Particle, our hero, being targeted by some sort of, like, Terminator vision.
I keep wanting to call her Pixel. I don't know why.
That's a better name.
Is that
Yeah,
background drawn or is that a photograph?
I think that's a photograph.
It's a photo of a real forest. That is
Okay.
a running theme in this comic, is using photoshopped photos for backgrounds instead of backgrounds.
Yeah, I mean it's not that hard of a cover to understand, I don't think. It's just as you described.
I think what is kind of odd.
It's the fact that it's mostly blackness with one thing tilted at a Dutch angle, and it's like, I can't really read her pose or expression. She looks like she's reeling back from having touched something nasty on the ground, but not in the same direction that she's looking, and I don't know what emotion her face is conveying. Like, dull surprise?
Yeah, Particle
Yes.
is strange looking, but I mean the rest of it is just to make it look unique, stand out. So I can see that.
I
Yeah.
guess. Yeah.
So, with all that in mind, this story is called The Hunt Begins, written and illustrated by Ken Penders, and I didn't write a plot description, but basically, the FBI chases down a woman with superpowers, and there's some cyborgs, I guess.
I'd like to point out that Spaziant was involved in making this happen.
Yeah, he did some coloring work. I'm wondering
Ah.
where exactly, because most of it looks like Penders' usual coloring style.
I mean, to be honest, there's not the coloring is very subdued overall. Anyway,
It's pretty
Yeah, that's the
muted,
style.
which
I
we,
mean,
we
whatever.
We have a title page here with another photoshopped city background with a sort of wistful particle photoshopped over it. And this narration is trying to paint some type of high-tech dystopian sci-fi future, except it's really kind of unambitious.
It basically sounds like right now.
These are all,
Well,
like, reasonable future projections.
Yeah.
Like, everybody has internet and widescreen, which in the year 2000, it's like, yeah, you could probably see that coming.
in the back, Penders reveals that it was supposed to only be between 5 and 15 years in the future, so that's not that surprising. That it's only
Right.
slightly more
Yeah.
advanced. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't, it's like, why did he even bother putting it in the future at that point almost?
And to be honest, the more ambitious one is saying New York to Tokyo in 4 hours.
Yeah,
Like,
that would
New York to
actually be,
Tokyo.
like...
Yeah, because New York to Tokyo is, 5 hours across the US and, like, another 11, 12 hours.
Yeah, it's like
across
14,
the
15
Pacific.
hours.
Yeah,
More than anything, it reminds me of, like, the final season of Parks and Recreation, where they make a bunch of really lame future predictions.
My favorite part of this is at the end, where it says there's two kinds of people, those that matter and everyone else. In other words, there's the lost ones, and then there's you. So Penders is calling you pointless, like
damn,
insignificant,
Pender's calling us out.
compared to his creations, I guess.
Not just we, the readers, are unimportant, but everybody except his specific team of superheroes is.
Which, as far as we know, is just Particle. That's as far as we're ever going to know.
We get a little bit of her sister technically, but not really.
That's right, she had a sister.
Right, in the special.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now that I'm looking at it, this second page of narration, the coloring on Particle is different, and it looks a lot more like Ken's usual dodge and burn shading, so I'm thinking that maybe all of the colors are done by Spaziant.
Yeah, maybe.
It's hard to know since usually his work is colored by other people.
Yeah.
Which, she's sitting next to, like, a pond with some copy-pasted lily pads, and the narration basically over-explains that it's just, hey, there's people with superpowers, they're cool. Like, why is there so much text?
How to make it seem grand.
And then we get random Japanese off to the side. Well, I guess it's not literally random.
I don't know what it says, though. I didn't
I
look it up.
translated it. It says, now enter the world of forgotten humans. I'm assuming forgotten humans is Google Translate mistranslating lost ones.
Yeah, probably.
And this is our first little taste of the random ass Japanese.
It gets pretty gratuitous.
Yeah, I guess I can touch on that now. It's interesting, and like thematically relevant, I suppose, to include that. But if you're gonna even include translations, which he does, it's weird that he decided to put them all the way at the back instead of like as notes on the pages.
Yeah, at least give it to us as a translator's note.
Yeah, because, I mean, plenty of, if my inner weeb comes out, it's like, whenever they have onomatopoeia in Japanese manga, it's like, you don't draw over the sound effects, you just put a little note under them saying what it means. So the actual beginning to this story, and I'm using actual a little bit loosely here, is basically a lot of friggin' narration to basically just say that the atomic bombing of Japan in 1945 is fundamental to who our narrator is as a person, even though their dad hadn't been born yet.
Yeah, this was a surprising way to start it. I did not expect, just right off the bat, actual history. Like, okay, yes, this is our world, and this is important.
Right.
And funnily, this will keep coming up throughout the whole comic.
Yeah, I'd say like a solid third of it is just a history lesson.
Penders really likes his story in the past, story in the present jumping through. They did that with the Knuckles comics all the time.
Yeah.
Right,
Also,
right.
that man looks nothing like President Truman.
I don't have a good mental image in my head of what Truman looks like, so I'm going to take your word for it. Well, and I don't understand all this because, again, there's way too much narration to say that very basic thing. But this isn't Particle talking. This is our point of view character, Julian Sikorsky. Is Sikorsky a real last name? I've never heard that.
Yes, it is. It is, I believe, Russian.
Okay. But he's saying that it's fundamental to his life. Why?
Yeah, I don't get why it's fundamental to his life.
I guess maybe if this guy, was meant to be a recurring or important character, maybe he was meant to be the point of view character of the entire series, then it would have some relevance because of how other characters affect him, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, all we really see on this page is them signing the order, so...
Mm-hmm.
What we actually do after that is jump ahead to the present, where some feds are chasing after a woman at an airport, but we don't really know why.
Do we ever really get to know why?
Well,
Well,
so, I mean,
no, because it was supposed to be built up over time.
Right. So I guess
I
that's the biggest problem. Is like so many questions are just not going to go answered.
this is Penders' whole thing, is that he does the J.J. Abrams mystery box thing. It's like, oh, you need a
Right.
hook to get people to keep reading. It's like, no, you just need to make something enjoyable to read.
Sure.
But it's weird. We get like two pairs of FBI agents here, except one has basically nothing to do. They're both just on different sides of the America-Canada border.
Yeah. The other one is being like spoken to somebody over communication, and that
Right.
is explained later. Actually, within this issue, instead of in some later issue, didn't happen.
Yeah. We get more Photoshop backgrounds, but we do see here that, like, if can be credited for anything, it's that he's fine at drawing humans. They don't look disgusting or anything.
Yeah, they generally look okay.
I'm not gonna say it's incredible, but it's fine.
His faces are a little YouTube poop worthy, I want to call them.
I do like the mustachioed FBI agent. He's slightly wall-eyed here, but you know, it's like I assume they're chasing her because they know about her powers, but they apparently don't know enough because she easily escapes, and we are
Right.
finally introduced properly to Particle, and she is introduced as one of the Lost Ones, which is weird because, like, are we supposed to assume that's a pre-existing group?
Well,
I
apparently.
assume the title Lost Ones is given to any of these people with superpowers.
Yeah, I assumed it would be a group of gifted
So-
individuals that were on the run or something like that.
Well, so
Yeah.
my theory is not that specifically that is a group of superheroes. That is just what is they're colloquially known as.
Well, it's kind of what I meant. I didn't mean they were
Okay.
together.
Okay, yeah.
They were
Okay,
they're
so,
all
yeah,
on the run, and they
Right,
probably
we're-
come from, well,
we're
who
on
knows
the
where they
same-
come from.
We're on the same page here then.
I suppose. And it's weird because Particle is introduced as one of the most dangerous, elusive, and unusual people on the planet. Those are the three adjectives.
Right.
And it says that her power is just to control electrons. All of them?
Okay, it's controlling electricity.
I know, but it says
Saying control
electrons.
The electron, I know. It is really stupidly written. However, the way they describe it is actually, it sounds kind of cool. Like, never really, when you think about controlling electricity, you don't also realize that would also mean controlling the electricity in your body.
Yeah, it specifically says you could do that, or
So-
obviously like a machine.
Bringing that up is actually kind of a cool idea that a lot of superhero stuff doesn't do.
I guess if you could, like, supercharge the firing of synapses in your brain, that would be kind of cool. She doesn't really do that, though. Mostly she just uses it to steal a car here.
Yeah, she just hotwires a car,
Right.
which is really underwhelming.
Well, we'll see more later.
Yeah,
Well,
we
she-
see a little bit more.
I do wonder how the feds caught on to her in the first place, because she's using powers that they seem to not be prepared for.
She might just be really bad at hiding herself or hiding her abilities. I don't know.
Is she headed for Canada or from Canada?
She's trying to flee the U.S.
Yeah, I suppose. Speaking of the FBI, they search a plane for her and find, I guess, absolutely nothing. It's weird how much time is spent on processes that don't succeed, because we're not at it yet, but we are gonna get, like, her going through customs next, and it's like you think that something is gonna no, nothing happens.
It's also
right.
weird is this plane on page fucking 9 looks nothing like the plane that was coming in for a landing a few pages before. Like,
No, we have, like, a
what the fuck
realistic
is this
plane.
plan?
We have a
Plane?
realistic plane on page 4, and then we have this sci-fi turbojet on later.
Yeah, but what the
Right.
fuck is this plane? I don't even understand how it flies.
Yeah, it has teeny tiny little wings.
It's got like ailerons on the front, and then what would I assume be wings on the back go down into like landing gear.
Yeah.
Whatever.
So they don't find anything, and then we jump back into 1945 again with being prepped for the bombing of Hiroshima with no context and no resolution.
Yeah, just another history lesson.
Yep.
Yeah, there isn't really a twist. It's just history.
And then we
Yeah.
jump back to the present with Particle lying her way through customs, speaking some gratuitous Japanese.
The fucking hayaku.
Yeah.
At the end, Ken explains that it's supposed to be like sometimes your brain
yeah.
goes back to your native language, sort of a thing.
Which I call some bullshit on because she was born in the States.
She said she was raised in Japan
I
for
guess.
like several years. It's weird because they seem to want to do both.
Right, they want to make her Japanese American, but lean more towards the Japanese.
Unless it's convenient for her to be whatever.
Right.
So yeah, nothing happens. I thought that the dude at customs was gonna, because he has like her identification card, and he's like, "Oh, who's the car?" And she's like, "Oh, it's my uncle's." Which I thought he would like pass information along, but no, he
Nope,
doesn't. Totally
he
fooled.
just doesn't give a shit.
Yeah,
I
never
suppose. I
noticed
suppose
it.
if it were me, I wouldn't.
Well, if that was actually the implication, that would make sense, maybe. But yeah, I hadn't noticed until you pointed it out. It's funny that this seems like a moment where, like, oh, the hero almost gets caught and they do something clever to get away. I mean, she kind of does. She makes a very simple lie, but,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the feds have found nothing basically, and Sikorsky is basically just getting reassigned to a completely different seemingly thing, and they're just like
Right.
disappointed. Again, it's like another 2 pages full of dialogue to basically just say, "Oh, we fucked up. Well, here's a new thing. Go check this out."
These two, Sikorsky and Agent Takada, were these two an attempt to replace the X-Files ripoffs from the Image Comics crossover? Because I
You-
was half expecting to see them come back.
Why didn't you just put these guys in the X-Files ripoffs? I guess he hadn't thought of them yet. These amazingly well-developed characters.
he seems to have some sorts of plans for them because there's this whole bit where it's like, oh, the reason that Tokata was rejected was the exact opposite of the reason that I was essential for this. And so, like, I assume that
Sikorsky.
there's something special about him or whatever.
Anyway, so Sikorsky is assigned to a different thing, and we jump back into 1945 again. This one sees an actual person, Paul Tibbets, questioning the morality of the atomic bomb, and this other guy's answer to him is, "Do you know why God created the devil?
Oh, yes.
Because the Almighty knew he needed someone to do the dirty work in order to protect his children." Which, what are you talking about? What?
We're justifying the existence of the devil now, or, well, the quote-unquote existence of the quote-unquote devil.
Well, so
But yeah.
we're playing into a lot of, slightly nationalist explanations of the atomic bomb, but what the fuck are you talking about with the devil? The devil doesn't protect God's children. He's an asshole.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a puzzling line, to be sure. It seems like it's advocating for self-defense somehow, but it's very confusing. Perhaps they're saying that the devil was created so that humanity would have something that it had to fight, because God wanted the human spirit to have the drive for self-defense. I don't know.
I
I don't know. It's such a weird line.
It really is.
But apparently that was enough to get Paul Tibbets to be like, "All right, sure, I'll kill 200,000 people."
This is a whole other debate in and of itself, but Ken's angle on this is interesting.
I don't know what he thinks his angle is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's not dwell on it. You got to remember the eternal
They'll be
mantra.
back.
Don't dwell on it.
True.
It's
So-
so hard not to.
Particle arrives on 252 Middlesex Lane, Buffalo, New York, and informs us that this whole time she's been headed for a childhood home of hers. Also, she's in New York, which means she's heading from Canada, not to Canada. She was 4 the last time she was here. And she says, "If not for the fact I was born here, I wouldn't feel any sense of connection." Which, I don't, that doesn't work to me. Like, I don't feel any connection to the place I was born. I feel connection to the place I grew up.
Well, yeah, I don't feel a connection to the hospital. I was born in California.
Yeah, exactly. But what's important is that there's a cyborg dude waiting for her here who's named Nine, and he's being commanded by Dr. Droid, the dastardly one.
It's the dude.
Did he have Spock ears in the crossover?
I
Honestly, don't
think
recall.
he did.
But
I find it funny. We were talking about, like, super lame predictions. They're still talking about uploading a JPEG when the cyborg is sending the picture.
That was fucking hilarious. Just, you can really tell it's the year 2000.
if they really wanted to do a good prediction. They should have had him upload it, and he's like, "Can you see it?" It's like, "No, it's a WebP file."
Ooh. Ooh.
Gosh.
God.
The least supported format in the universe. Anyway, yeah. So Dr. Droid, he doesn't really have anything significant to say other than, "Oh, she's the target. You got to get her." He's so generic.
Yeah.
Which I guess kind of everybody is. It's like, I can't name a really strong personality trait in any of these people, other than Particle is competent, elusive, I don't know. Which I say that, and she enters the house, but then you see the shadow of Nine in the hallway, and I guess she, like, lets out a girlish scream, which seems incongruous with what we've seen of her being, mostly stoic.
I mean, it's not revealed what happens later, but I thought that was the agent. I don't know if it's Nine or if it's a different one, actually.
Oh,
No,
you
it
think
is.
that
It
the
is Nine. Yep,
cyborg lets
it's
out the
Nine.
girlish scream?
Well, I
mean,
assumed
maybe.
as much because they go down.
Yeah, no, I know, but
Yeah.
that would actually be kind of funny. But so Sikorsky's new orders are, we want you to go investigate the same house, which is like, they didn't track her there. They were just like, "Oh, hey, how about this?" Which is like, I feel like you could very easily have made the customs guy pass along information so they could predict where she was going or something. It's weird how we sort of coincidence our way back together. And it's explained through a bunch of really clunky dialogue. Like, I'm trying to figure out this panel where the guy says, "We tend to be on the receiving end of a lot of jokes." And Sikorsky says, "Really? Seems rather nice around here. Didn't their football team just win a Super Bowl?" And it's like, what?
That's supposed to be a your.
Small talk.
Yeah, they're making small talk.
Yeah, but whose football team?
It's supposed
Headquarters?
to be your football team.
Of
It's supposed to be the Buffalo.
It has a name. I just don't sports.
I mean, neither do I. But my mother's from Buffalo, so.
I do like that he mentions the quarterback has a gun for an arm.
Yeah, I was that definitely stands out. I feel like the idea of people in the future being allowed to have gun arms is kind of implausible. Although the fact this is US, maybe that actually isn't so implausible.
It doesn't
I thought it
seem...
meant more. He can throw really well.
Oh, I thought it was literally
Oh, you thought it was a
gun
metaphor?
arm.
No, I was thinking that he was a cyborg. I thought this was fucking Barrett, playing football.
That's exactly
Wait,
what I
Am
thought.
I the only one who has heard the term "a gun for an arm"?
You know, it could be like a pun, and it could be literally they have a gun for their arm, and also their arm is
Yeah,
good.
but I mean, I have
possible.
seen that used before for quarterbacks. 'Cause,
Yeah.
people around me like football. I just don't like football.
This guy has more photos of real people in his office. Is that Burt Reynolds in the back? It looks like Burt Reynolds.
That could very well be Burt Reynolds.
Did you see Penders' son also is there?
Is that what the little
No.
one is?
Yeah, that's what the kid is.
Okay. I hadn't compared with the special to see if it was the same, but that makes sense.
That
So
would be fun.
maybe the photo is somebody else related to him. Maybe it's his dad. I don't know. Maybe that's Ken Penders Sr. I don't know.
Could be. I don't know.
Maybe his dad is Burt Reynolds.
Oh, Burt Reynolds
I
is
guess-
alive though. So.
Oh no, he died like 5 years ago.
Oh wow, I'm not up to date.
I'm sorry to all the Burt Reynolds fans out there. For all the Burt Reynolds fans watching this podcast.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of them.
I mean, there might be some.
I don't know. Anyway, we get another atom bomb flashback, and I have literally nothing to say about this. It's exactly what it seems like.
It's just more history lessons. It's history lessons that have really no purpose in being so plentiful.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's meant to build to the inscrutable moment, but
Sure.
without that context, it's like, what?
I feel like also they shouldn't be insensitive.
Oh, don't worry, we'll get there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't worry, I remember we get there.
So Sikorsky arrives at the old house of Carrie, and he gets attacked by a different cyborg. There's two of them. They both look almost identical, but one is 9, the other's 13.
Yeah, that's why I had to go check, because I was like, wait, which one is which?
You know
Yeah,
what?
what
I
happened to Particle?
didn't even realize that they were separate.
I didn't at first either.
My brain just put them together.
Well, because they
Also-
wear the same outfit. They're both big, bulky black men, and the only
Yeah.
difference is that one has facial hair and the other doesn't.
Oh, I didn't know. You know what? I didn't notice either. I either didn't notice the facial hair or didn't notice the lack of facial hair.
Yeah, so he attacks Sikorsky, who pulls out his very weird-looking gun.
No, not just any gun. According to Penders, it's a revolver.
That's not...
My man doesn't know his fucking guns.
Even if he knew
Well,
what a revolver was,
know
what is
a
this thing? It's got
revolver.
like a little prick, a pinpoint, like, shot? Is it
It's
meant to
like a
shoot
fucking.
toothpicks?
It's like smaller than a 22. This is like a fucking 177 millimeter, and that's probably even too big.
I
This
feel
thing is
like
literally an airsoft gun.
I feel like Penders watched Men in Black right before drawing this, and like he drew like the noisy
You know
cricket
what?
gun that Will Smith
You
uses.
know what? You know what? I have a feeling you might not be wrong.
Yeah, but 13 tosses him around like a rag doll across the kitchen.
And then Particle does a mind meld.
Yeah, so Particle shows up, and well, you tell me what she does here. She puts her hands on
She does a
13's
mind
head.
meld.
A photo of a nuclear blast is badly imposed over the
Oh,
image,
nuke blast.
and he falls to the ground as the pilot says, "My God, what have we done?"
So I'm assuming she gave him like a seizure or something, because she says she didn't kill him, because she doesn't kill apparently. Which
Yeah.
fuck that. You can scramble his brain easily. Just do it.
I don't know.
Principles.
Fuck principles.
I don't know what the deal with this is supposed to be. It implies to me, but I'm not certain how clear it is, that she is supposed to have her powers as a result of the bombing of Hiroshima.
Yes. In Japan, it generally makes big, scary monsters. In the States, however, we make superheroes because we see radiation very differently between the two countries.
And here
And
we have the unholy
have-
fusion of both of
Yeah,
those
we
things.
have a Japanese American character being given superpowers due to the bombing of, I think it was specifically supposed to be the bombing of Hiroshima, because that's the one that everyone talks about. Nagasaki kind of gets forgotten.
The one that
Even-
it's the first one, so it's the one that comes
yeah,
up more.
Hiroshima is the first one that happens, and was the, I believe, more damaging one as well.
Yeah, and it's just it feels gross.
Yes, it feels fucking slimy, and I was very tempted to bring alcohol to record this episode because I thought I might need it.
I don't know how I missed that. See, I was like, this is a questionable juxtaposition. Like, to compare Sikorsky's mission to like that of the bombing run. Like, should I really do this? Should I really arrest this person?
I hadn't
And then-
thought about that frame of
That
mind.
was the way I interpreted it. And then the particle was like an unstoppable force that the cyborg couldn't deal with.
Right, particle is the bomb.
But I'm not sure that wasn't the intention on top of what Devin is saying.
Yeah, I think both of what all three of us are thinking is probably the intention. Like, I think you're right in thinking the comparison of the prelude before the bombing and questioning whether or not it's right to do it is supposed to be, for what Sikorsky is thinking. And then the only connection to the bomb that particle has is the fact that's where she gets her powers from, which is
If
what
that's even
Devin
true.
and I were talking. Well, that seems implied, and that's
So-
what
so-
you and I
That
were
fits
mentioning.
perfectly.
Well, and the thing that I'm thinking about is, it's like what is the most charitable interpretation of this that you could say? You could say that she doesn't get it from the bomb, and this is like some sort of weaponization of cultural trauma or something against this guy. I don't know. There's no way to not make it kind of gross because you have a Japanese protagonist and you are constantly fixating on the most horrific act of war ever committed against the Japanese nation.
Potentially committed, period.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough.
As you said, it's just gross.
Well, it's another thing with Penders. It's the same as, like, the Nazi shit in the Knuckles comics, where
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, I hadn't even thought about that comparison. You're not
Penders is
wrong.
clearly trying to portray something, about how he feels about one catastrophe or another, but he does it without ever asking somebody, hey, does this read as kind of fucked up?
Yeah, well, because I feel like he doesn't want to ask anyone that because he feels like, I'm thinking this, therefore it's fine.
Well, and it's the same thing with like, he constantly calls himself a feminist, but his writing of women can be really gross.
Yeah.
He's prescribing his own ability to make things well portrayed, and it's clearly doing problems for him here. So, yeah. Anyway, we gotta move past it somehow. So
Just
when
gotta keep
she
going.
when she does the psychic nuclear blast on the robot man, it also blasts Dr. Droid out of his floating upside down chair.
I assume it's some feedback loop.
Yeah, something like that. And he falls to the ground and is like, "It's imperative that I learn what's become of 9 and 13, but we're never going to see what he did."
That's
Um,
fine.
Cyborgs are down. She did not kill them. She makes sure to make that clear. Sikorsky introduces himself and does not apprehend her because she saved his life, and he asks why she has the code name Particle, which she
That
does
makes it
not.
sound like she's a federal agent.
She doesn't answer why she has that name, and why would she? Because nobody has called her that in this story, including herself.
Oh, I didn't even notice.
Yeah, that's a
That's
good point.
funny.
Yeah, only the title is called her particle, or not title, but like.
This was the other reason that I was confused about, like, the Lost Ones being an already existing group. Because if they were and she had been doing stuff, that would explain why the FBI was onto her.
That would
And
also explain using the term code name.
but again,
Uh,
it's not clear.
The possibility is that's something that they've called her, like in the file or something. Because the government isn't telling him a lot of stuff either. Although that wouldn't explain how she knows that name in that case. I don't know.
True.
I assume he would have explained it between 1 and 20 issues later.
Maybe it'll take 75, I don't know. It is funny that he's like, why the codename Particle? And then she just launches into her backstory. She explains that she developed her powers in adolescence and that her dad was kidnapped by somebody, taken in by I'm not sure who. I assume that. So, okay, the first panel of this shows her as a child, I guess, accidentally hacking into the FBI's mainframe.
An iMac G3, I'd recognize that fucker anywhere.
Yeah.
So maybe that was why they took her dad, but they don't say that that was what happened.
I'm gonna try hacking into the FBI and see if they take one of my parents, and I'll get back to you later.
I kind of thought that was Droid's work. Who
It's
knows?
possible.
I guess.
Also, she says, "My mother took off with my sister Anita," which you'd think is like, oh, dad left and didn't come back. But no, they show them leaving at the airport, so what's the explanation for that? Like, you can see the particle and her dad in the background. So
Yeah.
if I had to guess, it's the fact that so much of Penders' writing is about his parents and, their nasty divorce and all that, so maybe it's something like that.
God.
Possible they simply separated because both of the children had powers and they wanted to like isolate them to protect them or something. I don't know. I'm just
Yeah.
guessing.
But that's Particle's whole backstory, and her motivation is then that she's searching for her mother and her sister, and I assume her father as well. I don't know. Also, we see that she knocked out 9, but we didn't actually get to see that happen.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
And she says, "I'll find the answers to these mysteries someday," and she drives off into the Photoshop distance in her stolen car.
And our ending turns out to just be an adaptation of Sonic Underground.
She made a vow, yeah.
She'll never find her mother.
Oh my gosh, it's true.
So that's the Lost Ones, everybody. That's the story.
I'm sure glad this wasn't stretched out over 75 issues.
Who knows what might have been? I guess we do get a little of that because Penders has a bunch of pages at the end of the issue that explains like extra details.
Yeah, there's
instead of
like
just-
3 full pages of him explaining his ideas and influences, and some awkward reasoning behind his janky gratuitous Japanese.
Yeah, it's funny that he puts all that stuff here instead of just in some of it in the story. And he planned to do this for every issue too. He says, "I'm sure that would have been a joy for everyone to read through, as obviously the stories would have been, given what we just went through." I don't really have a whole lot of comments on the rest of it, other than that Ship teases Julian and Particle at one point.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't read through all of this, so
Don't
that's
you
interesting.
want more of Ken Penders' writing of couples? Isn't he so good at that?
I'm sure that would have gone wonderfully.
Yeah, I'm sure it would have been absolutely great. We've got a rising sun flag a few pages after that.
Yeah,
That's always in great taste.
yeah, for the Lost and Found department, which I guess is like their version of Sonograms.
Which they don't have any of those, but they somehow have fan art in the first issue?
I guess because of... Well, so he says that he was going around to conventions promoting stuff, and also, you know, you did have the Sonic crossover, so if he really was like, you know, there's still an order page for the Sonic crossover in this, you know, so they were still pushing that. So it's not unreasonable to me that... Because there's 2 people sent in fan art.
Right.
Right.
Actually, it's possible that more people sent in fan art. You may notice that he picked the 2 people who sent in fan art with Asian last names. But
Yeah.
this is also where we get the promise, the hook for next issue is that the sister exists, Anita.
I don't know what it is about this. I don't like this cover.
It looks very weird. The weird bubbles, I don't know. It doesn't work.
I'm not really sure how to explain it. I don't like it.
And of course her hero name is Tsunami, which
Cool.
everything in poorer taste these days, I suppose, but
Yeah.
if you want to keep the theme of tragedy in Japan consistent with these characters, I suppose.
Yeah.
But yes, that's the Lost Ones. A stolen car, 2 down cyborgs, and some waffle about World War II. What can I say about this? There were some parts that were kind of interesting, but mostly everything felt like a placeholder.
Yeah, honestly, that's a good way of putting it. It feels very much like, it feels like something that's unfinished. Which, gee, I wonder why.
Yeah, this is the way Penders does stories. What did you expect, honestly?
Yeah.
Since it's the introduction story, it at least has the novelty of, introductions. But I doubt, issue 2 would have stood out very much.
Yeah, I don't know.
Probably.
I mean, if we have to rate the supposed appeal of issue 2 on anything, it's that the sister is at least there. It's not taking 40 episodes to find Queen Elena, apparently.
Right.
But
I'm just saying, if it was anything like this, it would probably be less interesting because it wouldn't be fresh at that point. Which, I mean, I guess this wasn't entirely either because we'd seen these characters. But I was trying to think, oh, well, maybe they'll somehow all be informed by the super special. But no, he seems to have rebooted these characters, kind of, or the super special is supposed to take place way later. I was trying to think about that.
Because you just know that he would want it to be canon.
Well, so
it would be somehow.
To be fair, I don't remember much of the Image Comics crossover.
How could you?
But from what I remember, Particle was not all that important to the plot of it.
She
was
kicked
there.
off the plot, but then she didn't have
plot.
anything to do with the rest of it.
Right. So it doesn't really matter, I think, if it's canon or not, because she had basically nothing to do with the plot.
We're
discussing the Lost Ones, and there's very little material to talk about.
Right.
That's the thing, is that nothing happened. That's why I said, a stolen car, 2 down cyborgs, and some waffle about World War II. Everything else was just padding. It's like there was so much dialogue, there was so much flashback to...
Yeah.
I suppose if we really were to entertain the idea that they should build up the nuke thing, which they shouldn't, it's like, you would only need, 1 page of flashback at most. Everything about how you got to that point it didn't do anything. It just made the pacing worse and ripped me out of the story every time we flash back. Which is I didn't need to be distracted from the normal story as is.
Well, because it's just stating what happened. There's nothing different there, aside from that one strange line about God and the devil. Yeah, 1 page and you get the gist of it, pretty much.
If this is Penders' vision, then it ranges from boring to slightly offensive. Well, and the worst thing that I can say is that it is consistent with how he acts in real life sometimes, because for some reason, Penders cannot bring himself to not be weird about Asian people. I don't want to dip my toes too far into this, but way back when we did the first Penders issues, one of the tweets that I showed on screen was where he said, an Asian woman couldn't pull off the live-action Ghost in the Shell role, which is like, one, go fuck yourself, and two, an Asian woman already pulled off Ghost in the Shell. It's a remake of a Japanese film.
Right.
But I also remember, I don't have this on hand, but I remember him casting for his live-action Lost Ones trailer, and he's like, I need a woman with Asiatic features, which is like, why would you use that language? Just say, I need a Japanese woman. You know, it's like,
Right.
don't be weird. And then there was this weird exchange about a year ago when he posted like a decade-old photo of himself with a former fan at a convention and claimed they were Taiwanese to prove that he had fans across the globe. And he said, I hope this doesn't lose me the Chinese audience. Which, again, go fuck yourself. And then the person in question responded that, I'm not actually from Taiwan, I was just staying here, and also I didn't give you consent to post this photo of me from when I was underage. And in response, he called them a liar.
Oh boy.
So the point is, Penders really needs to just change. Please just become better.
Become normal.
just,
Well,
just,
quote unquote normal.
or optionally, just shut the fuck up.
Well, yeah, that would be nice as well.
Yeah, I don't know. The Lost Ones is pretty bad. I do not feel cheated that it hasn't gotten any new material. That's the ultimate conclusion that I get from this.
Yeah. I mean, basically the same. I think I might prefer it over what the heck Ken is supposedly cooking up now, but
I mean, at least I can say this. It is a fully original intellectual property as opposed to the Laura Sue Chronicles, which is so tied up in Sonic crap.
Right.
maybe if he had at least continued this, he wouldn't be so hell-bent on abusing Sonic fans' love for Sonic to try and market anything.
Right.
Well, but you gotta remember that the reason that he's doing that is because without Sonic, he can't keep it going, because that's why this comic didn't continue. It got canceled.
Right.
Certainly, I'd trade everything that he's done with Laura Sue to this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we'd have to read more of this, and
Well, no, because then
again,
he wouldn't be as infamous, and we probably wouldn't have ever touched it.
fair enough.
well, I don't know. I
Actually,
think it
yeah.
would turn. I think it would turn this from something that's like slightly shameful into an interesting oddity, even if it was still bad.
Well, no, but here's the thing. What Lauren means, though, I think what he means is without the shit that he's done since Sonic, because let's be honest, since he left Sonic, what the fuck has he done?
No, he's teased stuff and then not delivered.
And because of that, and the shit storms that he's started on Twitter and with lawsuits and stuff, that's made him infamous. And that's really the only reason why we gave enough of a shit to cover this. If he wasn't as infamous, I don't think any of us would have cared enough to cover this.
I suppose the question is whether we plan to look at other stuff by former Sonic staff.
I mean, what would that entail? Be entailing covering stuff like Spider-Verse?
Maybe, or like Drogoon is, something that Ian Flynn and Adam Bryce Thomas work on right now.
Right.
Carl Ballers has done a bunch of shit. I don't know.
Right.
Anyway, so I'd say the sole redeeming factor of this is that the art is a lot less embarrassing than anything Ken ever drew for Sonic, even when it has badly photoshopped images as the backgrounds, because all of the characters are humanoid and thus do not look like hideous melting monsters, even if they don't look great.
To my untrained eye, I would look at this and I wouldn't really blink twice. I'd be like, it's a comic. Like, if, I didn't realize it was the Lost Ones. It doesn't look that out of place.
Yeah, it doesn't look that bad.
Well, I'm glad we dived into this
Oh, yeah.
strange creation. I was always very curious.
We never
about this.
brought up how we got a hold of this.
Oh yeah, kudos to Lauren for buying a
Yeah.
copy of this and scanning it for us, because there's no scans of this available online.
I mean, and yeah, you never even told us you were doing it. You just suddenly posted on Discord one day. It's like, guess what I have?
Yeah, well, so I was like, we got to cover the Lost Ones. And then Deb was like, there are no scans. And I'm like...
And you're like, I know what I must do.
I can't believe it. And the fact that there are no scans could only mean one thing, which is that nobody cares about it, which means probably they wouldn't ask much for it. Yeah, sure enough, cost me almost nothing. Ordered it online, bam. And now we're covering the Lost Ones.
Now we're done covering the Lost Ones, because that is going to be it for this bonus episode. Thank you all so much for sitting with us through this odd experience. If you like this episode, feel free to share, comment, like, and subscribe. And if you want to see more, you can reach us at any of the resources shown on screen. We post episodes every Sunday, except for when they're bonus episodes like this one. Thank you all so much for watching. Have a great rest of your week, and take care.